I was a second-year resident when this happened, working night shifts at St. Vincent's Medical Center in Bridgeport, Connecticut. If you've ever worked nights in a hospital, you know there's a moment, usually around 2:30 a.m., when the building feels less like a place of healing and more like something hollowed out and waiting. That's when the legend starts to feel real. No one officially talked about it, not in meetings, not in emails. But if you stayed long enough, someone would eventually lower their voice and ask you the same question. Has anyone ever assigned you room 417? I heard about it my first month. An attending laughed it off, said every hospital has ghost stories. Old buildings, old deaths, tired brains. I believed him. I shouldn't have. Room 417 was at the end of the west wing on the 4th floor, cardiac step-down. The hospital's website says that wing was renovated in 2011. That's true. What they don't mention is that one room was never fully put back into rotation. On paper, 417 didn't exist. No bed assignments, no patient records, no charting template. The door was always closed, the lights always off. If you passed it during rounds, you barely noticed it until the night I was paged for it. It was my 4th consecutive overnight. I was exhausted in that deep, vibrating way that makes you feel hollow behind the eyes. Around 3:12 a.m., my pager went off. Code gray, room 417. I stopped walking. Code gray is for aggressive or unmanageable patients. We didn't have psych beds on that floor. I checked the pager again, convinced it was a glitch. Same message. The charge nurse at the desk looked confused when I asked her about it. 417? She said. That room's not. Her computer chimed. She frowned at the screen. That's weird. What? I asked. She hesitated. There's a patient assigned. Just came through 10 minutes ago. From where? She shook her head slowly. It doesn't say. We walked down the west wing together. The lights flickered the way they always did after midnight, humming too loud in the silence. When we stopped in front of room 417, the door was open. The room was lit. The patient was already in the bed. He looked to be in his late 50s, thin, grayish skin. Cardiac monitor leads attached properly. IV placed cleanly in his left arm. Whoever admitted him knew what they were doing. His eyes were open and fixed on me. "Doctor," he said, before I spoke. His voice was dry, like he hadn't used it in a while. "You're late." I checked his wristband. No name, just a date. 4 days earlier. I asked the usual intake questions. Name, allergies, pain level. He answered everything calmly, clearly, too clearly, like he'd rehearsed it. His name was Thomas Riley. Chest pain, shortness of breath, history of heart failure. He said he'd been admitted a few nights ago. "That's not possible," I told him gently. "You were just brought in." He smiled faintly. That's what they always say. When I stepped out to check his chart, there was nothing. No labs, no imaging, no admission note. The system showed an error when I tried to enter orders. The charge nurse wouldn't meet my eyes. "Doctor," she said quietly, "maybe you should call the attending." I did. He went silent when I mentioned the room number. Then he said, very carefully, "Discharge him." I can't discharge a cardiac patient with active chest pain. Another pause. Then don't let him stay a fourth night. I didn't understand what that meant. I do now. At 4:08 a.m., Thomas Riley's heart rate began to drop. Not suddenly, gradually, like something was draining out of him. I called a code blue. No one came. The hallway outside room 417 was empty. No alarms echoed. No overhead announcement. The monitor beeped softly, slower and slower, until it flatlined. I performed CPR alone. When it was over, the body was wrong. Not stiff, not warm, just empty, like a shell that had already been used up. The time of death was 4:17 a.m. I stepped out to get help. When I came back, the bed was empty. The monitors were gone. The room was dark. The door was closed. I didn't sleep that morning. I stayed after my shift, digging through old hospital records, microfilm, archived incident reports, anything I could access without raising flags. That's when I found it. A fire. March 1989. 4th floor, West Wing. Electrical fault. Smoke inhalation. 17 patients died before evacuation reached them. One of them was a cardiac patient named Thomas Riley. He was pronounced dead 4 days after admission. At 4:17 a.m., in room 417. I confronted my attending that night. He didn't deny it. "We don't know why," he said, "but every few years someone gets admitted there. Always the same man. Always the same chart errors. Always the same outcome. Why not seal the room?" We tried. "What happens if he stays past the 4th night?" My attending looked away. Everyone else on the floor starts to die. My contract ended 3 months later. I left medicine entirely after that. But last week, I received an automated email from St. Vincent's, a satisfaction survey for a patient encounter I never documented. Room 417. Admit time 11:03 p.m. Length of stay ongoing. If you work nights in a hospital and you ever hear a pager go off for a room that doesn't exist, don't answer it. Because some patients aren't there to be saved. They're just making sure they're not alone when it happens again. I was 24 when I took my first real job out of college, working as a substitute teacher at Roosevelt High School in Gary, Indiana. If you don't know Gary, it's the kind of place where buildings don't get demolished. They just get abandoned and quietly repurposed. Roosevelt was still operating, but barely. Half the school was closed off, entire wings unused, due to budget cuts and declining enrollment. On my first day, the vice principal gave me a badge, a map, and one warning. "Don't let students wander after the last bell," he said, especially near the old academic wing. I assumed he meant vandalism. I was wrong. The legend came from another substitute, a woman named Karen, who'd been there for years. "There's a classroom," she told me in the break room, stirring powdered creamer into burnt coffee. "Nobody uses it anymore. But sometimes, it doesn't realize that." I laughed politely. She didn't smile back. Roosevelt High was built in the 1930s, expanded in the 60s, partially renovated in the 90s, and then left to rot. The old academic wing, Hall C, had been sealed off after a structural inspection found asbestos and mold. Officially, no one was allowed in. Unofficially, the doors were never locked properly. I first noticed room C214 while escorting a student back to class. The hallway was dark, lit only by emergency lights. Most doors were chained shut. C214 wasn't. The door was closed, but light spilled out from underneath. And I could hear voices. Students, dozens of them. I stood there, confused, listening to the sound of desks shifting, papers rustling, low murmured conversation. It sounded like a class in session. I checked my schedule. No classes were assigned to Hall C. I opened the door. The room was empty. No desks, no students, no teacher. Just rows of old desks stacked against the walls, covered in dust. When I stepped back into the hallway, the voices were gone. That night, I asked the head custodian about it. He went quiet. Then he said, "You didn't go inside, did you?" I nodded. He sighed. "They really should have told you." The story goes back to April 1998. There was a chemistry class in C214, advanced placement. College-bound kids, smart ones. A gas leak had been reported earlier that day, but maintenance never found the source. The administration decided not to evacuate. Third period started as normal. At 10:43 a.m., the room exploded. 14 students and one teacher died instantly. The official report blamed faulty lab equipment. The wing was closed permanently, but teachers started noticing things. Chalkboards erased overnight, attendance sheets filled out in handwriting no one recognized, and sometimes, after the final bell, C214 would still sound occupied. I tried to ignore it, until it happened again. It was late October. I was covering for an English teacher who quit mid-semester. The school was nearly empty by 4 p.m. I was packing up when I heard the bell. Not the end-of-day bell, a class change bell. I froze. There hadn't been a bell schedule like that in years. Then I heard it. Chairs scraping, lockers slamming, laughter echoing through the hall. From Hall C. Against my better judgment, I followed the sound. As I approached C214, the door was open. Inside, the room was full. Students sat at desks that hadn't existed minutes earlier. Textbooks open, papers spread out. A chalkboard covered in fresh writing. They all wore old-style Roosevelt uniforms, ones I'd only seen in yearbook photos. None of them looked burned. None of them looked injured. They looked normal. One student raised his hand. "Excuse me," he said. "Are you our new teacher?" My mouth went dry. I think you're in the wrong room," I managed. They stared at me. Then one girl whispered, "It's happening again." The temperature dropped instantly. I smelled gas, strong, overwhelming. A boy near the back started coughing. "No," someone said. "Not again. Please." The teacher, if that's what she was, stood up. She looked at me. "You shouldn't be here," she said calmly. "You need to leave." The door slammed shut behind me. The lights flickered, and then the explosion. I woke up in the hallway. No fire, no damage, no room. Just a sealed door where C-214 had been, welded shut. Security cameras showed me lying there for 3 hours, unresponsive. Administration said I had a panic attack. They said the room never reopened. They said Hall C had been sealed for decades. I quit 2 weeks later. I moved states. I don't work in schools anymore. But sometimes, when I pass by old buildings or hear a bell ring at the wrong time, I smell gas. And I swear I can hear a student ask, "Are you staying this time?" Because here's the part they don't tell you. Everyone who ever went into that classroom survived. But none of them were ever the same. Some stopped aging. Some stopped sleeping. And some say they still hear the bell, calling them back to class. When you're in an old school and the bell rings when it shouldn't, don't check the schedule. Don't open the door, because some classes never ended, and they're still taking attendance. I moved into the Hawthorne Arms in late 2002, back when rent was cheap enough that you didn't ask too many questions. The building sat just outside St. Louis, Missouri, wedged between a closed-down grocery store and a liquor mart that still had bars on the windows from the 80s. It was one of those brick apartment complexes built in the 1950s. Long hallways, low ceilings, radiators that clanged all night. The kind of place people pass down through word of mouth. When I told my coworkers where I was moving, one of them laughed and said, "Which floor?" When I said third, the laughter stopped. The Hawthorne Arms had 4 floors. The first was loud, but lived in. Families, kids, dogs barking through thin doors. The second was quiet. Mostly older tenants who'd been there forever. The fourth was nearly empty. Just a few people who worked nights and never spoke. The third floor, though, people avoided it. Not officially. There were apartments listed. Rent was cheaper there, which should have been a red flag. But nobody ever applied for those units unless they were desperate. I was desperate, divorced, broke, 36 years old, and sleeping on a coworker's couch. So when the landlord told me Unit 3B was available, I took it. The first thing I noticed was the silence. Not quiet, absence. The moment I stepped off the stairwell onto the 3rd floor, it felt like sound stopped traveling correctly. My footsteps sounded wrong, like they were being swallowed by carpet that wasn't there. The hallway lights buzzed faintly. Half of them were burned out. Doors lined the walls, but most looked unused. Dust around the frames. No welcome mats. No nameplates. Only 3 apartments showed signs of life. Mine included. The landlord, a man named Earl, didn't come upstairs with me. He stood at the bottom of the stairs and called up, "Your keys are on the counter." "That's it?" I asked. Yep. You don't need to walk me through anything? Long pause. No, he said. Just don't prop your door open. I laughed, assuming it was about security. He didn't laugh back. The first few nights were uneventful, just unsettling. I'd wake up at random hours with the feeling that someone was standing in my living room, not watching me, just there, existing in the space. Every time I turned on the lights, nothing was wrong, but the air felt disturbed, like someone had just left. On my fourth night, I heard footsteps in the hallway. Slow, deliberate, heavy. They stopped outside my door. I held my breath, listening. Then came a knock. 3 slow taps. I didn't answer. After a minute, the footsteps continued, but not past my door. They faded into the wall beside it. I mentioned it to a woman on the 2nd floor the next morning. Her name was Marianne, and she'd lived there since the early 90s. She stared at me for a long time before saying, "You moved into 3B, didn't you?" "Yes." She closed her eyes. "I'm sorry." That was when she told me the legend. Back in the late 70s, the 3rd floor had been popular, mostly single adults. Quiet people. Then, over the span of a few years, something strange happened. Residents started disappearing. Not all at once, not violently. They just stopped being seen. Their apartments would sit untouched, rent unpaid, food left to rot inside. Management would break in weeks later and find nothing wrong. No signs of struggle, no bodies, just empty units. Eventually, the 3rd floor developed a reputation. People said it wasn't haunted. They said it was hungry. I didn't believe her. I should have. Things escalated fast. I began hearing conversations through my walls. Muffled voices, speaking too slowly, like they were thinking through every word. Sometimes they said my name. Once, at 2:17 a.m., I heard someone crying softly from the apartment across the hall. I opened my door. The hallway was empty, but the crying continued. From inside my own apartment, I stopped sleeping, started drinking, anything to stay awake. Because every time I slept, I dreamed of the hallway. Only it was longer and darker and full of doors that weren't there before. On the 10th night, I finally met one of my neighbors. A man in his early 40s, tall and thin, standing by the stairwell like he'd been waiting. "You shouldn't be here," he said calmly. "Neither should you," I replied. He smiled. "I'm not." Before I could ask what that meant, he stepped backward and vanished into the wall. That's when I tried to leave. I packed everything in one night, didn't care about the deposit. But when I opened my door, the hallway wasn't bare anymore. Instead, I saw a perfect copy of my apartment. Same furniture, same boxes, same me, standing inside, staring back. He smiled and stepped aside, inviting me in. I slammed the door and screamed until my throat bled. When I opened it again, the hallway was back. I ran, didn't look back. I didn't move out properly. I just left. For weeks, I slept in my car, but something followed me. Not physically, mentally. I'd catch myself standing in doorways, forgetting how I got there. Sometimes I'd wake up and feel like I was missing time, like parts of me were still upstairs. Years later, I looked it up. The Hawthorne Arms doesn't have a third floor anymore. Official records say it was removed during renovations. Photos skip from second to fourth, but locals still talk. They say if you walk past the building late at night, you can see lights turning on where the third floor should be. And if you listen carefully, you can hear footsteps, slow, deliberate, looking for someone who left before it was finished with them. If you ever rent an apartment and the floor is cheaper for no clear reason, ask why. Because some places don't want tenants, they want occupants. And once you're counted, they don't like letting go. I was 26 in the summer of 1997, living in Saitama Prefecture, working contract jobs that paid just enough to keep my car running and my apartment barely livable. Back then, before smartphones and GPS, there were still roads in Japan that felt forgotten. Roads that didn't show up on maps unless you knew exactly where to look. Honjo Pass was one of them. Everyone knew the rule. Nobody ever explained why. Honjo Pass cut through a stretch of forest between Chichibu and the outskirts of Gunma. It wasn't dangerous in the normal sense. No sharp cliffs, no extreme weather. But locals avoided it after dark. Taxi drivers refused fares through it at night. Delivery companies rerouted trucks, even if it meant an extra hour of driving. When I asked my coworker why, he said it casually, like it was common sense. Because if you stop on Honjo Pass, he said, something will stop with you. Then he added the rule: if you drive Honjo Pass at night, you do not stop. Not for lights, not for voices, not for people. I laughed. Everyone laughed. Urban legends thrive on roads. Japan is full of them. But nobody ever joked back. The first time I drove Honjo Pass was an accident. I was coming back late from Gunma after visiting a friend. I took a wrong turn, didn't realize it until the city lights vanished behind me and the forest swallowed the road. The air felt different immediately. The radio lost signal. Not static, silence. The road narrowed, the trees pressing close, their branches arching overhead like ribs. Then I saw the sign. Honjo Toge, Honjo Pass. I felt that familiar tightness in my chest. The one you get when your instincts recognize something your brain hasn't caught up to yet. I remembered the rule, so I didn't stop. About 5 minutes in, I saw the first light. It wasn't headlights. It hovered just off the road, low to the ground, pale and steady, like a lantern. I slowed instinctively. Then I remembered, don't stop. I kept driving. As I passed it, the light drifted closer to my window, and I heard someone whisper my name, perfectly. That was when I realized something important. It didn't sound like it came from outside the car. It sounded like it came from the passenger seat. I drove the rest of the pass, shaking, eyes locked forward, hands numb on the wheel. When the forest finally opened and I reached the main road, I pulled over and vomited on the shoulder. I told myself it was exhaustion, stress, My imagination. I didn't tell anyone. I should have never gone back. But 3 weeks later, I had to. A storm rolled in suddenly that night. Heavy rain, fog thick enough to turn the world into a tunnel of white. The main highway was closed due to flooding. Hanzhou Pass was the only route. I sat in my car at the turnoff for a long time, rain drumming on the roof. I remembered the rule, and I remembered the whisper. I told myself I wouldn't stop, no matter what. About halfway through the pass, I saw a person standing in the road. A woman, white blouse, long dark hair plastered to her face by rain. She stood perfectly still, blocking the lane. My heart slammed against my ribs. Every instinct screamed to brake. But the rule echoed louder: do not stop. I swerved around her. As I passed, she turned her head. Her face was wrong, too smooth, like wet clay. No eyes, no mouth, just skin stretched tight where features should have been. She followed me with her head until she vanished in my rearview mirror. It was shaking so badly I could barely drive. Then, something tapped on my window. Once, twice, 3 times, from inside the car. I didn't look. I didn't slow. I didn't breathe. The tapping moved to the back seat, then to the trunk, then directly behind my headrest. A pressure settled into the car, heavy and crowded, like too many people standing too close. And then the engine stalled. The car rolled to a stop, dead center of Hanzhou Pass. Silence swallowed the rain. The lights went out, and every rule I'd ever heard suddenly became meaningless. That was when the voices started. Not whispers, conversation. Dozens of them. Men, women, children, all speaking calmly, politely, like they were standing just outside the doors. "Please," one voice said. "You dropped something," another added. "Are you lost? We can help." I squeezed my eyes shut. I didn't answer. The passenger door handle moved, slowly, testing. The back door followed. Then the trunk latch clicked. I smelled damp earth and something older, something sour. Then a new voice spoke, right next to my ear. "You stopped," it said gently. "That means it's our turn." I don't remember screaming. I remember the interior light turning on. I remember seeing the passenger seat was no longer empty. Someone sat there, not fully formed, like a person remembered incorrectly. Its head tilted toward me, and I understood the truth of Hanzhou Pass. The rule wasn't about safety. It was about permission. If you stop even once, even by accident, you acknowledge them. And once acknowledged, they're allowed inside. The engine started on its own. The figure dissolved into the dashboard like smoke soaking into cloth. The doors slammed shut. The car lurched forward. I drove the rest of the pass in a trance, tears streaming down my face. I didn't sleep for days. I quit my job. I sold my car. I moved, but something stayed with me. Sometimes, when I'm alone at night, I hear rain tapping on my window on clear nights. Sometimes, my passenger seat creaks, like someone shifting their weight. And sometimes, just before sleep, I hear a polite voice ask, "May we stop now?" I finally learned what happened on Honjo Pass. In the 1950s, before the road was paved, a bus slid off the trail during a storm. It took hours to find it. No survivors. Locals say the passengers never left. They're still waiting, still trying to flag someone down, still hoping someone will stop long enough to listen. So if you ever drive a mountain road in Japan at night and hear your name spoken softly from inside your car, don't answer. Don't slow down. And whatever you do, do not stop. Because once you do, they don't let you leave alone. I moved to Branovo, a small town in eastern Slovakia, because I needed somewhere cheap, quiet, and forgettable. Branovo was all three. It was the kind of place you only ended up in by mistake or desperation. One main road, a church older than the country itself, and rows of identical houses that looked like they'd been copied and pasted sometime in the 1960s. The locals were polite, distant, and strangely synchronized. I didn't notice it at first. I noticed it at 2:17 a.m. My first night there. I woke up because my room felt crowded. Not noisy, not active, just full. I lay still in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening. Then I heard footsteps. Not inside the house, outside. Dozens of them, moving together. My bedroom window faced the main street. When I pulled the curtain aside, I saw people walking past my house. Every house, every direction. Men, women, children, all walking calmly, evenly, as if following an invisible line. No one spoke. No one looked at me. They walked past like I wasn't there. I checked my phone. 2:17 a.m. The procession lasted exactly 4 minutes. At 2:21, the street was empty again. Dead silent. I told myself it was a festival rehearsal, or sleep paralysis, or stress. I went back to bed. The next night, it happened again. Same time, same footsteps, same people. This time I counted 73 individuals. Always the same number, always the same pace, always the same faces. By the fourth night, I recognized them. The baker, the woman who sold cigarettes at the kiosk, the old man who sat outside the post office every morning. All of them walked past my window at 2:17, and all of them acted like they'd never seen me before during the day. I finally asked, at the cafe, I casually said to the barista, "Does anything happen in this town around 2 in the morning?" Her hand froze mid-pour. Then she smiled too quickly. "You must be dreaming," she said. I asked the landlord. He didn't smile. He didn't deny it either. Instead, he said something that made my stomach tighten. "You should keep your curtains closed at night." Why? Because watching makes it worse. I didn't listen. On the seventh night, one of them stopped. A woman in a long gray coat. She halted directly beneath my window. The others continued walking around her, like water flowing around a stone. She slowly looked up and smiled. Then she resumed walking. The next morning, the woman in the gray coat was missing. Her house was locked, lights off, mail piling up. No one mentioned her. The phenomenon escalated. Each night, the walkers moved a little closer to my house, not physically, personally. Some nights, they'd slow near my window. Some nights, they'd glance up. One night, a child waved. I started sleeping during the day, drinking at night. Anything to stay awake through 2:17. But even when I closed my eyes, I could hear them. Their footsteps were perfectly synchronized. No dragging, no variation, like a metronome. On the 12th night, the sound changed. There was an extra set of footsteps, louder, heavier, out of rhythm. I looked. At the end of the procession, someone new walked. Someone who didn't belong. Someone wearing my jacket. My heart slammed against my ribs. The figure walked with its head down, mimicking my posture. As it passed my house, it lifted its head. It had my face, but wrong. The eyes were slightly misaligned. The smile lingered too long. The next morning, I packed. I didn't care about money. I didn't care about explanations. I tried to leave. The road out of Branovo looped back into town. Every time. Different turns, different routes. Same church, same houses, same cafe, same people. Watching me now. That night, the landlord came to my door. "You shouldn't have watched," he said calmly. "What is this place?" I demanded. He considered the question, then said, a pause. He explained the legend. Branovo sits on the site of an old pilgrimage route. Centuries ago, travelers passed through during harsh winters. Many died in the surrounding fields. The town grew around their remains. Locals say the dead still walk, but not aimlessly. They retrace the last path they remember, every night at 2:17. "But they're alive," I said. "I see them during the day." He nodded. "Some of them are." I realized the truth too late. The procession wasn't for the dead. It was for the town. A ritual, a reset. Those who watched too closely, those who noticed, eventually joined. On the 15th night, my door was unlocked when I went to check it. My shoes were gone. My jacket hung by the door. At 2:17 a.m., I stood outside. I don't remember deciding to. I just remember being there. The cold felt familiar, comforting. The footsteps began, and my body moved with them. I tried to stop. I tried to scream, but my legs walked. My arms swung. My face relaxed into the same neutral expression as everyone else. As we passed my window, I saw my room, empty, waiting. At 2:21, we dispersed. I found myself standing in front of a house I didn't recognize, with keys in my pocket, with memories that weren't mine. Now, during the day, I work at the cafe. Sometimes I see travelers move into town. Sometimes I want to warn them. But the words don't come out right. And at night, at 2:17, I walk. If you ever visit a small European town where everyone seems too familiar with one another, close your curtains at night. Don't look outside. And if you hear footsteps moving in perfect unison, stay in bed. Because the town doesn't like being watched. And once it notices you noticing, it makes room. I was 23 in 1996, living in a rental cabin just outside Ely, Minnesota, near the edge of the Superior National Forest. I'd taken a seasonal job doing wildlife surveys. Nothing glamorous, just tracking animal movement, checking trail cameras, marking disturbed ground. The locals warned me constantly. Not in the dramatic way you hear in horror stories. They were casual about it. Too casual. Don't hike after dusk. Don't follow sounds that repeat. And if you hear something walking when you stop, keep walking. I thought they were talking about bears. I was wrong. The first time I noticed it, I was tagging saplings near an old logging road. No wind. No birds, just the steady crunch of my boots in the snow-dusted leaves. Then I stopped, and something else didn't. Footsteps, one extra step, right after mine. I froze. Silence returned instantly. I waited a full minute before turning around. Nothing. I told myself it was an echo. Sound travels strangely through dense woods. Everyone knows that. Still, I didn't stop again for the rest of the hike. Over the next few weeks, it happened more often. Every time I paused, every single time, I heard one additional step. Not behind me exactly, just with me. Never closer, never farther. Perfectly timed, as if something was walking beside me, invisible, mimicking my pace. I asked my supervisor, a man named Cal, about it. He didn't laugh. He asked, "Did it ever walk when you didn't?" "No." "Good," he said. "Then it hasn't chosen you yet." That should have terrified me. Instead, I laughed it off. The locals called it the walker. Not a ghost, not an animal. Something that lived in the forest long before roads, long before trails. They said it learned people by copying them, learning their rhythm, their weight, their sound. The rule was simple. Never let it finish a walk with you. Nobody explained what that meant. Things escalated in October. I was hiking back to my truck at dusk when I tripped and fell hard, knocked the wind out of myself. As I lay there gasping, I heard it. Not one step, not two, but many. All around me, circling, but none of them came closer. I scrambled up and ran. The footsteps followed, perfectly synced with mine. When I slowed, they slowed. When I sprinted, they sprinted. I reached my truck shaking, slammed the door, and locked it. The footsteps stopped, but I could feel something standing just outside, waiting. That night, I dreamed I was walking through the woods, only this time, I could hear my steps ahead of me. From then on, the walker stopped hiding. Sometimes when I paused, I heard breathing, my breathing, from somewhere I wasn't standing. Once, I heard my own voice whisper, "Keep going." I decided to leave. Seasonal job or not, it wasn't worth it. On my final survey route, I cut through a section of forest locals avoided entirely. No trails, no markers. I wanted to finish quickly. I shouldn't have gone there. The woods felt wrong immediately. Too symmetrical, trees spaced too evenly. No undergrowth, no animal sounds. Even my footsteps sounded muffled, like the ground was absorbing them. When I stopped, the footsteps didn't. They kept walking. Ahead of me, I followed them. I don't know why. They led me to a clearing, and in the clearing was me, standing perfectly still, facing away. It wasn't a reflection. It wasn't transparent. It was solid, breathing, wearing my clothes. Its posture matched mine exactly. I tried to speak. It spoke first. "Your turn," it said. Then it stepped forward, into me. I woke up on the forest floor at sunrise. My clothes were filthy. My boots were worn down unevenly, like they'd been used for years. My watch was gone. So was my compass. I left the woods immediately. Here's the twist. I didn't escape. I finished the walk. It's been almost 30 years. I still hike. I still hear footsteps. But they don't follow me anymore. They precede me. When I stop, something behind me takes one extra step. And I know exactly what it's learning. Because sometimes, deep in the woods, I find boot prints that match mine perfectly. Only older, more worn, and heading in the opposite direction. The walker doesn't hunt people. It replaces them. And the thing that walked out of those woods in 1996 wasn't the original me. If you ever hike alone and hear an extra step when you stop, don't panic. Don't run. Just turn around. If you see nothing, leave immediately. Because if you see yourself, it means you've already walked too far to turn back. I was 22 in 1998, working the night desk at the Redwood Pines Motor Lodge off Highway 101 in Northern California. If you've ever stayed at one of those roadside motels, you know the type. 2 stories, exterior walkways, ice machine that never worked. The kind of place people stayed because they were passing through or because they didn't want to be found. Night shift was quiet, boring mostly. I liked it that way. That's why I noticed him immediately. He checked in at 11:46 p.m., paid cash, no reservation, early 30s maybe, average height, brown hair, forgettable in a way that felt intentional. He smiled too much. "Just one night," he said. "Room doesn't matter." I gave him room 214, second floor, near the end. When I asked for ID, he hesitated, just a fraction of a second too long, then handed me a driver's license from Oregon. The name on it didn't stick. Neither did the face. At 12:19 a.m., he came back to the desk. Same clothes, same smile. "I think you made a mistake," he said politely. "I'm supposed to be checked in." I frowned. "You already are." He tilted his head, not confused, curious. "Oh," he said, "right," and walked away. That should have been the end of it. But at 1:02 a.m., he checked in again. Same man, same cash, same license, same exact smile. "I need a room for the night," he said. I laughed nervously. "You already have one." He blinked, slowly, then smiled wider. "Are you sure?" I pulled up the system. Room 214, occupied. His name already entered. When I looked back up, he was still there, waiting. I asked him if he needed a key replacement. He said, "No, this time, I'll take whatever you give me." Something about the word time stuck in my head. I gave him room 107 without knowing why. He took the key. Our fingers brushed. His skin was warm. Too warm. I didn't see him leave the lobby. I just realized he wasn't there anymore. At 2:30 a.m., the phone rang. Room 214. I answered. No one spoke. I could hear breathing. Then, my own voice, perfectly. "Front desk, how can I help you?" The line went dead. I checked the security monitor. Room 214's door was open. The room was empty. Bed made. Bathroom unused. No luggage. No sign anyone had ever been there. I went outside to smoke. From the second floor walkway, I saw movement near room 107. The door was closed, but the curtains shifted. Someone was standing just behind them, watching me. I didn't sleep after that. I watched the clock crawl toward morning, counting the seconds. At 4:11 a.m., the man appeared in the lobby again. Same smile, same face, different clothes. "You gave me the wrong room," he said calmly. "I didn't," I replied. He leaned closer. "You gave him the wrong room." My stomach dropped. "There's no one else," I said. He smiled wider. "Not anymore." I checked the system again. Room 107 now showed occupied. Under my name, not his, mine. I told him to leave. He nodded. "Okay," he said easily. "I'll check out." He slid a room key across the counter. It wasn't one of ours. It was old, brass, heavy, stamped with 214. At 5:03 a.m., housekeeping arrived early. She asked why there was a guest sleeping at the desk. I laughed shakily. "There isn't." She pointed behind me. The security footage from that night was corrupted, all except one clip. At 11:46 p.m., a man checked in. At 12:19 a.m., the same man checked in again. At 1:02 a.m., he checked in a third time. Each time, the camera showed him more clearly, and me, less. I quit that morning. Didn't collect my last paycheck. Didn't explain. Years later, I looked up the Redwood Pines. It burned down in 2001. Cause unknown. No bodies found. But witnesses claimed firefighters saw someone standing in the second floor window long after the building was empty, smiling. I still work nights. Different hotels, different towns. Sometimes just before dawn, someone approaches the desk and asks for a room. Sometimes they look familiar. Sometimes they look familiar. They smile too much. And sometimes, when I check the system, I see that I'm already checked in, under a room number that doesn't exist anymore, waiting for someone else to take my place.